Alright, if you weren't here during the stream, this is a recap. If you weren't here during the first part of the stream at least, this is a recap. I went through all the champions, I went through all the builds, what cards you should be using, at least in my opinion. And this is just a quick recap to summarize everything. So Androxus, you want Darkstalker, you want to be able to dash all the time. It's a ridiculous card. It's probably the best legendary card in the game right now. With that card, you want full dash build. Abyss Walker, you want to heal up, and then you want reload. You're never going to run out of ammo. You're always going to heal up. This is Andrew's probably one of the best characters in the game because of this. Next up, Bomb King. Accelerant in 90% of the scenarios. If you're dealing with a point stack, you can get Demolition. Your Grumpy Bomb should help you destroy the shields and whatnot. But in most scenarios, if you're just fighting a normal casual game, then you're going to want Accelerant. You move around a lot faster. And with that, I would say use a build similar to this, get some extra HP, get some air control, and then backdraft just to get your poppy up more often. That's about it. If you want to use the Grumpy Bomb build, then just get your Grumpy Bomb cooldown. Other than that, it's pretty much the same though. Buck. Heroic Leap is the only option. Either of the other two were just bad. Just use double jump, always. With that loadout, it's pretty much the same as before. Seismic Wave, Leg Day, and then personal preference for the others. I think Vigor 2 is a good option. Yeah, that's about it for Buck, honestly. He only has one option, in my opinion. Cassie, I think your best bet is Big Game. Impulse is meh, and Exaction is basically just old Cassie. Either of these two are okay, but I think Big Game is the better option. If you're running Big Game, it's the same build as before, just with Territorial. So you have your cooldown reduction on the disengage, and besides that, it's just the same build as before. If you want to run full roll build, you can, and again, that's just the same build, whatever you had before. If you want lunge 1, you can have that. If you want lunge 3, you can have that. It's just whatever you had before. Drogos, he has two options. He can be fast and do no damage, or he can do a lot of damage and be very slow. It's just situational. If you're fighting against something with mobility, something that can chase you down anyways, then you're better off going with the damage. That way you have a chance at least at killing them. Like if an Androxus is chasing you, if you have this build, one Loogie and one direct hit is going to kill him. Whereas if you just have the movement speed, you're not going to be able to run away from him anyways. Like he's going to be able to chase you down with his infinite dashes. So I'd say just get the damage and commit to it. If they have a point stack, same thing. Get the damage, just sit back, play it like Drogo's was in OB43. The movement speed is useful if you want to fight something like Kanessa or Cassie or Maeve or Evie, something that has a hard time hitting you, and you don't have to worry about taking more damage than you deal. Then you can get the movement speed and just kite them around. Those are your two options basically for Drogos. Either way, it's pretty much the same build as before. For the direct hits, you get literally the same build. This is the build I was running in OB43. I think this is the best build for it. If you want to run the movement speed, you run the same build, but you don't need Thrill the Hunter Survival. Thrill the Hunter Survival aren't as useful when you have the movement speed build. Like, you move fast anyways without your thrust. So I'd say just get Fuel Tank for some more survivability, basically, some more movement speed. And then Spitfire is just nice for the salvo, I guess. It's not particularly useful, but he doesn't have too many options. If you want, you can replace this with Survival too. That's just personal preference. Evie's a lot worse now. She doesn't have very many options. Your best option is still probably Wormhole. You can use the Soar, maybe. You can probably get away with it, but Evie right now, in general, is pretty bad. I'd recommend just going Wormhole again and using the same default build. Just replace Wormhole, what used to be Wormhole 2, with Cold-Blooded 2. If you want to use the Soar build, you can. Then you can run something like this and just commit 100%. If you commit 100% to the Soar, it could be okay. But the problem is you're lacking mobility outside of the Soar. Like, you have no healing, you have no sustain, and you have to commit to the kills. If you don't get the kills, then you're fucked. Fernando, you have two options. You have Aegis, which will decrease the cooldown, or halve the cooldown of your shield, and also make it infinite duration. You would play this similar to how you'd play a Reinhardt in Overwatch. You use the shield and push forward with the shield. Put your carries behind the shield and slowly push them down, or just stand on point and shield the whole point while your teammate sets up or whatever. If you don't want to use that, then you can still use the Fireball build. It's perfectly fine. Either way, it's either the same old build, whatever you had before for the Fireball build, or if you want to run the shield, you can just go all out with the shield, get your last stand, get your towering barrier. But this is very much personal preference. This is probably the build I would run if I was running an Overwatch style Fernando, where putting my shield up and standing behind the shield, I'd probably run something like this. As for Croc, Croc has two options legendary card wise. Wraith is not good enough in my opinion. I'd say you have two options basically of you can avoid getting CC'd or you can CC other people. Those are kind of your two options. The anti-CC, you only have one loadout option, I'd say. It's pretty much the same build as before, just get maybe an extra level in Monolith. Just get Haunting and Gale, you have a lot of survivability then, you heal up your team then. This is more focused on point stacking and keeping your teammates alive. If you want to run Maelstrom, you have two options. You have the all-out fragging Croc. It's very obnoxious and it's really annoying to deal with. But you also lose a lot of survivability. So I wouldn't recommend this in most scenarios, but if you really want to punish them for stacking or just try to keep their carries busy, then this is a good option. If you want a more balanced build, I would go with this though. You're just removing the Thunderstruck and instead replacing it with Haunting and Gale. So this is more of a balanced build between the first totem build and also having Arc Lightning for your Shock Pulse. This is the balanced build. You have a lot of survivability, you have a lot of options to slow and CC the enemies, and this is more similar to how Croc was played before, of you're just going to be there and be obnoxious and no one's going to be able to kill you. Next up is Grover. Grover has one option in my opinion. I think the Crippling Throw that roots is the best option. It has so much synergy with other characters that I think you should always use it. If you use it, you should go all out with it. Use Chop Down 4 and just cripple everybody you can see. You can do this with a Drogo that has direct hits. You can do a lot of damage. You can do this with a Kanessa, making it easier to hit. A Bomb King, anything that has a lot of damage that can be hard to confirm. Crippling Throw is definitely the way to go. This again, it's sort of a balanced build. Besides Chop Down, you just have kind of a normal build. You have some extra range on your Bloom or on your Blossom, and you have some movement speed on the Blossom. If you want to run a more healing oriented build, you can. I wouldn't recommend it for most scenarios. I think the root is better, but if you see that they pick up a Croc with the CC immunity totem, then maybe you want to go with the heal instead. If you see like, okay, well I'm not going to be able to CC them much anyways, then commit to the heal instead and just play Grover more how you used to play Grover. Kanessa only has one option in my opinion. Any of them could work, but I think the headshot's the only option. Even if the headshot isn't consistent, getting that one time you do hit a headshot and one-shot someone, it's very impactful. So I think the headshot's the best option there. With that, just use the normal build. This is what I used. A lot of people prefer using Bob and Weave or Beam Me Up, something like this. But personally, I prefer using my good old normal build. If you want to use a mine build, you can. You're going to sacrifice all of your healing and all of your sustain, and it's just personal preference, I guess. But if you want to use the mine build, just you go all out, get Well Suck 2, Amplitude 2, and Octopressor 2, and just throw mines everywhere. That's kind of your only option if you want to use the mine build. Maeve, again, Maeve also only kind of has one option in my opinion. I use the elimination reset cooldown on bounce. Of pounds, and it's same build as I was using before. If you're using Shred, you don't need to use Shred anymore. You should be getting eliminations, which resets the cooldown anyways, so I'd go back to using a more heal oriented build, a more sustained build. It's pretty much the same, it's just you're going to be pouncing more. Nichola, similarly to Maeve, only has one option in my opinion. It's basically the same thing as before. You just deal more damage when you hook someone. If you're going to use that, since you don't have Leviathan as a card anymore, it's now Ebb and Flow, I'd recommend using a build like this. Strong on 4, Salvage 2, get some CD reduction on your dash, and get some heal on your dash in case they don't have Cauterize. And even if they do have Cauterize, you're not wasting a bunch of points in your loadout on this. Snake only has one option as well, in my opinion. You can use the gourd, but it's just not very impactful due to how long the cooldown is and who you're actually going to be slowing with the gourd. I would say get Mending Spirits card and just pocket heal people. He has the exact same build as before. As if you're healing carries and you're healing people with mobility, get Eerie Presence. So you're running this build with Possession 3, Ritual Magic 3, and Eerie Presence 4. If you're healing tanks, you can skip the Eerie Presence because you can hit your heals more reliably, and instead go with Many Gourds 3, or Many Gourds 4. Sorry. This is more a tank-oriented heal, and this is more a carry-oriented heal. Pip. We discussed Pip a little bit. He has two options of using either Catalyst or Mega Potion. Mega Potion seems to be the better option right now, since it no longer increases the cooldown of your heal. I would say it's probably the best option. If you're going to run that, then you're probably just going to want a full heal build. I think Side Tanks 4 is still core. Being able to slow people is equally important as it was before. And then just get Reload 3, Gift Giver 3, so you can spam heal people as much as possible. You could potentially go Reload 4, so something like this, Reload 4 and Explosive Tanks, or Side Tanks 3, but I wouldn't say it's worth it. It's a minimal difference. Like Side Tanks, 1 more second is a big difference, but Reload 3 versus Reload 4 is a very small difference. So I'd say go with Reload 3, Gift Giver 3. If you want to use a more damage-oriented Pip, if you already have like 2 healers or whatever, then you can get Catalyst, and then it's basically just the normal build, same as OB43. Gift Giver 4, Side Tanks 4. You can skip Gift Giver and get Acumen or Graviton, but I would say Gift Giver is still the better option. Not only does it heal your teammates then, but it also heals yourself for more, so I would use Gift Giver regardless. Ruckus, I think Ruckus only has one good option. He has Aerial Assault. Flux Generator might have some potential. We'll see later down the road depending on how the meta develops, but as of right now, he only has I would say he only has this option with the Aerial Assault. He's going to jump and have more mobility. It's actually very obnoxious, especially on smaller maps, on anything that has high ground advantages, so like Serpent Beach or Frog Isle, anything where it makes a big difference whether or not you can jump. It's gonna buff him quite a bit. And with that build, you want to have the same as before, Fuel Reserves 3, and then just full emitter basically. Same build as I had last time. If you do want to use the damage reduction card, then you can. It's the same build, just with Metal March instead of Fuel Reserves. Shaolin only has one good card. The other two are, this one is irrelevant entirely, and this one is too much of a clutch situation. I would say use Recurve. It's just, you just get more DPS straight up. So I'd say it's the best option. If you're going to do that, you use whatever your personal preference is. This is my personal preference for a build. I've been using this for the past few days or a few weeks even. But you can use basically whatever you want here. Whatever you were using in OB43, just like Cassie, is perfectly fine here, whatever your personal preference is. Sky, I personally think that you only have one option of Preparation. Surprise Attack has potential to be good, but I think Preparation is just the option. With Preparation, you don't need any cooldown reduction on your cards, so you don't need Shadow Affinity, you don't need Poisoneer, you don't need Quick Smoker. You can just go all out with effects, basically. So you get movement speed on kills for 12 seconds, which is a ridiculous card, and Nimble Fingers just gives you reload speed, basically. So that's all you need. Those are your two main cards, and then everything else is just small little bonuses here and there. For Torvald, again, I think you only have one option. Direct Current might be okay, but generally speaking, I'd say you want Field Study in 99% of the scenarios. It's a very good card, and again, just like with Grover, it synergizes with a lot of other people. Like, it synergizes well with Kanessa or Victor, or even like a tank like Nichola. Getting his hook and then getting a shield on that hook for extra damage means you one-shot people. So I would definitely recommend getting Field Study in 99% of the scenarios. And with Field Study, it's the same old build. You get cooldown reduction on the shield, and then you get survivability. If you don't need the survivability, so if you have other tanks, if you have a lot of heals, and it's not as important that you get recharge from shield, then you can go more greedy with Scribe's Wit and get more silences off. Or if you want to use a silence-oriented build with this legendary, then you can do that with the Runic Blast cooldown reduction. but I wouldn't recommend it. I would still say go with the 40% damage on shield. It's still the better option. I would say if you're going to use Torvald with the shield, then you should be using this deck. Tyra also, she has 2 cards that are okay. The lifesteal is irrelevant. I wouldn't recommend picking this up. I would say Hunting Party is the better option of Hunting Party and Mercy Kill. It just gives your team a big bonus, and again, just like Torvald and Grover, synergizes well with other characters. Marking someone that Nichola hooks or marking someone that Kanessa is aiming at can be very influential and can turn a fight in your favor. So I'd say this is generally the better option. If you're fighting a fight that's more spread out, if your comp is more oriented on fighting solo or just spreading out in general, looking for angles, looking for individual picks here and there, then you can get Mercy Kill to help you finish off targets better. But even so, I'd still say Hunting Party is the better option. With Hunting Party, I use the same build that I've been using in the past, just straight up movement speed and cooldown reduction on the mark. Again, I've been using this build since pretty much day 1 on Tyra. I think it's the best option. Even if you're using the nade build, by the way, I would still say this is the best option. For Victor, he has 2 cards that are useful, I'd say. It's hard to say which one is more impactful. If you're under more pressure from flankers, from tanks, whatever, I would say focus on getting the heal card, stay alive, and you'll do more damage. You'll do more than 15% more damage if you can stay alive for longer. So if you can use this, if they don't have Cauterize, if they don't have a way to chase you down, or if there's too much pressure on you, then use this. Make sure you're always healing up, always staying. Like, you don't have to worry about getting on a combat to heal, and you can just sprint around. If you don't have any pressure on you though, and you have an easy time just shredding the tanks or shredding their backline, whatever it might be, you can go with the 15% more damage. Either way with these cards, I still use the same build. This is my personal preference since I didn't use Grenadier. If you want to use Grenadier, however you can, then it's pretty much the same build. It's personal preference. Whatever you find good on Victor is the build you can use. It doesn't really make a difference. The only recommendation I have would be have Compensator at least at level 2. I think level 2 is the sweet spot, but that's personal preference again. And lastly for Ying, Lifelike is the best card by far. It's again one of the best cards in the game. So I'd say pick up Lifelike in 90% of scenarios. Resonance we'll probably see more of later on. It takes a little while getting used to it. It's a tricky card to actually utilize. But for now, I'd say focus on Lifelike, especially if you only have one healer. If you have multiple healers, or you're just a very tanky comp in general, you can definitely get away with picking Resonance and try it out. Just go for it and try it out. Focusing Lens, you shouldn't use at all. If you're going to go for damage, get Resonance. If you're using Lifelike, it's the same build as before. This is the build that I use. I think it's the best option for Ying. It was the best option, it still is the best option. If, however, you do want to go for a more damage-oriented comp, or kit with Shatter, then I'd say Fracture 2 is a pretty good middle ground, and you could still have your illusions healing, and still have tanky illusions that do more.